Of course, this past week or so, we've been hearing criticisms from our allies on Canada failing to meet the NATO target. We heard from the Americans. Donald Tusk, Prime Minister of Poland, has raised this concern lately, as well as Prime Minister of Estonia. Minister, do you believe Canada should be at the 2%?
Yes, I do, and I can also share with you that we're working very hard to achieve that, and in fact...
But you have in the main estimates that are here, the budget that you've tabled, the DPU that was just released, no plans on getting to 2%. Prime Minister Trudeau is quoted in secret documents that were released to the media some time ago that Canada will never make the 2%. So who's stopping you as Minister of Defence from getting to 2%?
Well, if I may answer your question, first of all, the budgetary increases I present here in the new mains estimate, plus the money that will be included in the budget when passed, that we've just introduced in Parliament, it will result in an increase in our defence spending by 27% next year over this year, and it brings us much closer to that 2%. The things that we have articulated in these estimates, under the Strong, Secure and Engaged project, and now in the new Defence Policy Update, are now Strong and Free, brings us to 1.76. But we've also indicated, Mr. Bezan, to our allies and to Canadians that in addition to those things which are now fully funded once that budget is passed, and I very much look forward to your support in getting that budget through.
Minister, you know that there's a lot in that budget that we disagree with, that we aren't going to be funding. And we know that most of the funding that you had in your DPU is backloaded for the future government. It's not going to be for this first government. You said yourself the Canadian Armed Forces are in a death spiral. You say that we need 6,700 military housing units. And yet in this budget, in these estimates, and in the next year's budget that was in the DPU, there's zero funding for new military housing. We're in a retention and recruitment problem, and yet one of the problems we're hearing is that our troops are living rough. They are unhoused. They're living in tents, cars, and campers, or living in precarious situations that sometimes could lead to domestic violence. Where are the new houses, and why are you backloading the DPU onto the future government rather than dealing with it yourself right now?
Yeah, I've two things in response to that. First of all, you recall, of course, in 2014 when we actually committed to 2% in Wales, the next thing a Conservative government did was actually reduce defence spending below 1%. And since that time...
Correct you on that, sir. I'll correct you on that. We made the commitment in 2014, and it was a 10-year commitment. Guess what? That 10-year commitment ends now. You've been government 9 years. Why aren't we hitting those targets? And when we get down to it, you guys did creative accounting on... Mr. Chair, this is my time.
Well, hang on. This is not question period. So let the minister. I'm asking the minister to try to answer your question. Then you can ask it again or defend.
I was only created with the fact that when you committed to 2%, the very next thing a Conservative government did was reduce defence spending to its lowest amount in any Canadian history, less than 1%. And since that time, and this is rather important, Mr. Bezan, at the end of this year, we will have more than doubled defence spending, and every single nickel of that, I checked, you voted against it. Every single dollar that we added to defence spending, you reduced.
Well, let's not forget that.
We just had a question now.
Mr. Minister, we just had a motion in front of the House last week to put a freeze on the rent increases on our own military, and you voted against that, and we need to get that rolled back so we put more money in the hands of our troops. But you went ahead anyway, and you still increased funding. You still went ahead and we know that we have military members right now that are having to buy their own kit, and we know that that comes out of their own pocket. We were in Latvia last year as committee, and we actually saw it where troops are buying their own helmets, their own hearing protection, their own vests. You know, that is despicable that they had to actually do that themselves. So I want to move on to talk about, but like we can play this game.
Does the member not want to hear an answer to the housing question?
Yeah, so let's get to it instead of the rhetoric.
He's still asking his question.
We're working very hard in bases right across the country with mayors and with the private sector. The Canadian Armed Forces has a great deal of property which is serviced and available for the building of military housing. We are working with the private sector and with other orders of government to utilize the value of that land to build housing for Canadian Armed Forces members. There are some extraordinary opportunities right across this country. We said right in our policy document that we are prioritizing Halifax, Toronto, and Vancouver, but I can tell you I have proposals.
So I got a minute left, Minister.
From Trenton,
and so let me just
from
say,
Petawawa, from Borden, and from Esquimalt. There are many opportunities for us
with all
to
due
respond
respect,
very
in these
quickly
estimates,
to
there's
the
still
housing
$0,
challenges
even if you're
that they
looking at
face.
working with municipalities. Even if you're looking at working with the private sector, there's $0 from the government going into military housing, and bases need to be renovated. We know that in the last 2 years, only 38 homes were built for the Canadian Armed Forces. In my last minute here, I just want to ask a question,
you
Minister.
guys built when you were here.
You were just in March up in Edmonton, and you were asked a question about the CRV-7 rockets that Ukraine asked for back in November. We, as a party and Pierre Poilievre, have asked the government to send them in February. And you in March said we're doing the work right now to make sure these munitions can be safely transported, and it'll only be a matter of days and move quickly. Ukraine took that to say that they expected announcements shortly. Why haven't the CRV-7 rockets been sent to Ukraine? They need them now. And where is the NASAM that you promised, or it was promised by Minister Anand 18 months ago?
And we are working with the Ukrainians with respect to delivering the CRV-7s, but there is work ongoing, and perhaps that might be a question you want to ask the Deputy Minister, the status of the safety of, first of all, the utility and the safety of transporting those munitions to Ukraine. And with respect, thank you for the question on the NASAMs. Ukraine said that they needed NASAM rockets. We don't have any. We went to the market to see if we could purchase them. It was going to take 4 or 5 years, so we went to the United States to expedite that acquisition. As I've already reported to this committee many times,
this is getting way beyond 20 seconds.
$400 million in order to expedite
He won't
that.
stop talking.
They have placed the order. They've promised us as soon as it comes off the production line, it will be delivered. But I'll also share with you, we've heard very clearly the need for
as important as this sharing might be, Mr. Bezan has finished his questions.
$76 million just 2 weeks ago in order to...
Minister?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Minister.